Welcome to the chaos sector. We have exposed so much in our daily reports, let's just do a brief review. Democrats and Republicans take center stage in the political matrix. Independents, libertarians, and the small percentage of the Green Party all take a back seat to the so-called giants. Although, out of those groups, libertarians are starting to develop more influence. But to be honest, a libertarian is the same as a progressive in the Democratic Party. Libertarians are the children of conservatives, who are the children of Republicans. Progressives are the children of liberals, who are the children of Democrats. A bunch of branches of each political party's tree. Independents, you would think, should have more influence politically, right? I mean, with all the corruption on both sides, there should be a wave of independent voters changing the political climate. Can't have that though, ruins the donor class. Now, let's get back to the current focus, the gun debate. In today's episode, we examine the House's Judiciary Committee hearing. We take a peek inside this building, where laws go to either fade away, or pass. Republican Representative Greg Steube, however it's pronounced, challenges the Democrats on their proposed gun control bill. Let's listen in.
Yield to a member on the Democratic side that served in a combat area designated zone and deployment of our country. Anybody in the Democratic side?
Mr. Steube, what's the purpose of the question? My father. No, let me finish. Let me finish.
Because I'm going to make a point and you're taking my time. So I will yield to any member who...
From the jump, there are insinuations being thrown around, and I think it's safe to say that Steube is suggesting that the Democrat can't truly address the issue of gun rights, or gun control, if he hasn't served in the military. Why? Well, the question itself suggests this, and that's why the Democrat responded the way he did. But let's continue.
Because I'm offended at your suggestion that somehow, if we've not served in a combat zone, that we don't care about protecting the lives of our constituents.
Has nothing to do about how you
to me.
And for our family members who have lost blood, they should be respected.
Reclaiming my time. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like 40 seconds.
I've seen my constituents die in battle.
It's Mr. Steube's time. Gentleman is recognized.
And I will ask for 40 additional seconds that I was taken. Okay, so I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I served in the Army, and there's a lot of talk in Washington about weapons of war. And my purpose of yielding to one of my colleagues who may have served was to ask them a specific question of what type of firearm were you issued when you were deployed. And the answer to that question is a true, what would be defined as a weapon actually used in war, has a selector switch on it for fully automatic, 3-round burst, and semi-automatic. So when I deployed in 2006 in Operation Iraqi Freedom, we were issued M4s in the United States Army. Those M4s had a selector switch on them. Those selector switch allow you to have fully automatic, 3-round burst, or semi-automatic. Those firearms are not allowed for purchase in the United States today. So this cascading of weapons of war, what I was issued, and again, I would ask any person that served in a deployed environment, you are issued weapons that allow for fully automatic and 3-round burst. That is not available for purchase in the United States, and that is not what the Democrats are attempting to ban today, because that's already banned.
Now, before we go any further, this semi-automatic rifle is the weapon of choice in the so-called mass shootings. Steube's premise is that this weapon is not fully automatic, which is not available for civilian use or purchase. But, if you recall the previous episode, Dana Lash revealed that modifications can be done to the semi-automatic rifle, such as magazine size. What about modifying it to fully automatic? I think you know the answer to that. Let's continue.
What we're talking about is a semi-automatic rifle that only is used in a semi-automatic form. So behind me is a typical AR platform weapon, and you can't see it because it's on this side, not the other side, that has a selector switch on it. That selector switch is only for fire or not fire, safe or not safe, and that is for a semi-automatic operation of the weapon, which means every time I depress the trigger, a round comes out of the firearm. All right, next slide, and just move it over. This is the most popular handgun in the United States that was purchased is a Glock 19. It functions in exactly the same way as this rifle. It's a semi-automatic, just like that's a semi-automatic. The rifle's not available for purchase, don't have a selector switch for 3-round burst or fully auto. This is a semi-automatic handgun. As quick as I depress the trigger of this Glock 19, a round comes out of the chamber. The functionality between that weapon and this weapon are exactly identical. There is no difference. So you're banning a class of weapons that you don't like the look of, not because of functionality, not because of how fast a round comes out of the weapon, just because you don't like the way that they look, because they function exactly the same. Now move this one over one. So now this is a Glock 19. Glock 19 comes with a 15-round magazine, which under this bill is legal, although it's interesting that a couple weeks ago you banned 10-round magazines and then you changed it to a 15-round magazine. It's interesting to understand the thought process there, but that is for another time. This is a 6-hour P320, which some of you probably saw in one of the hearings on the magazine bans. I showed my P320. This comes with a 20-round magazine. So under this bill, because it has a 15-round magazine ban, this gun would be banned because you wouldn't be able to use it. Again, it functions exactly the same as that gun. It functions exactly the same. As fast as you depress the trigger is as fast as a round comes out. So now the next one. So that gun would be banned. That would be okay because you can put a 15-round magazine in it.
Despite everything he is babbling about, it still doesn't change the fact that the AR-15 is being used by far the most in the so-called mass shootings. That is the focus, as displayed in this hearing. We all know it's not about handguns and the magazine size. Regardless of what the gun control bill consists of, including a so-called ban on those handguns he mentioned, the main focus is once again the semi-automatic rifle. That weapon is preferred in the so-called mass shootings. Comparing the semi-automatic rifle to the semi-automatic handgun or pistol is like comparing a sports car to a family van. They both function the same as operating vehicles, but one doesn't have the same appeal with consumers as the other. What's the point here? There is an advantage that he is not addressing. On purpose. We will break it down, of course.
This is a lever action. Under this bill, lever actions apparently are okay. But semi-automatic AR platform rifles are not okay, so we're going to discriminate against the type of firearms that we're going to use, despite the fact that the functionality is the same. The only difference here is after you depress the trigger and a round comes out, you have to reload using the lever action, which saves you maybe half of a second. The next one, which is also legal, is a tubular. This is a tubular 22, which, again, and Mr. Massey did a good job of highlighting how ridiculous the calibers of the bullets are. The Democratic majority is discriminating against some of the most popular weapons in the United States simply because they don't like the way they look, not because of the way they function. And there are so many Americans that are confused when they see the semi-automatic rifle that the Democrats want to ban as being fully automatic. It's not. You can't purchase that. It's illegal. It is not a weapon of war. A weapon of war has a fully automatic switch or a 3-round burst. I yield back the remainder of my time.
Okay, let's break this down, because he cunningly avoided the reason for the proposed ban. First of all, claiming something is illegal means absolutely nothing. Who do you think is taking advantage of the illegal aspect? That's right, the so-called mass shooters. They can simply modify their firearm, converting it from semi-automatic to fully automatic. He is performing damage control in that hearing. The average person knows about modifications to firearms. In fact, that's the latest trend nowadays, modifying your guns. So if you can modify your AR-15 to become fully automatic, by way of legal sales of those parts, his argument is simply a rambling display of damage control. The semi-automatic rifle, or AR-15, is used by so-called mass shooters, because of one significant difference. Do you know what that difference is? Oh sure, it functions the same as a typical handgun, but there is a very distinct difference, that the so-called mass shooter is absolutely aware of. What is it you say? The reason the AR-15 is used over the handgun in the so-called mass shootings, despite the same semi-automatic function, is due to the caliber of the weapon. The bullet for the AR-15 is more lethal than that of a common handgun. After all, it's a rifle bullet. A rifle bullet is designed to retain all their weight and shape upon impact, and penetrate very deep. Stubby wouldn't dare mention this, and he's lucky his Democratic counterparts never raised this point. But of course, they're all pretending anyway. Yet let's examine the bullet of each gun, to prove why the AR-15 is preferred over the handgun in so-called mass shootings. Examining this chart, of handguns to rifles. Now the caliber for handguns is wider in diameter, but the caliber for rifles is sharper. This makes the bullet far more lethal, or better put, deadly. It's deadlier, because the bullet does not deform upon impact, which pierces through flesh, as opposed to handgun bullets. Have you ever seen hunters using handguns to take down their game? Negative. They use rifles, which allow for greater precision, better stopping force upon impact, and also, non-deformation of the bullet upon impact. A wild animal is taken down by the power of this weapon. Now, in the so-called mass shootings, the same caliber applies with the AR-15. The same stopping power, the same precision, the same non-deformation of the bullet upon impact. And that, my friends, is why the AR-15 has been classified as an assault rifle by the left. Rightfully so, due to its use in the so-called mass shootings. We are not classifying it as an assault rifle with law-abiding owners. We are classifying it as an assault rifle for those who are, get this, assaulting civilians in so-called mass shootings. It's not hard to understand. But the likes of Stubby and Dana Lash want you to believe that the AR-15 is just a, quote, gentle giant that is harmless to the civilian world. Yeah, tell that to the families of so-called victims in the so-called mass shootings. Since Stubby doesn't have the guts to tell the truth, we'll offer a plan for the Democrats' gun control bill. He mentioned a selector switch mechanic on the assault rifles used in the military, right? Well, that technology should give us a great place to start. Let me explain. With the ability to switch between automatic and semi-automatic, this means gun manufacturers have the capability of affecting the weapon's performance, right? Let's go one step further and install, wait for it, civilian zone technology. That's right, since the technology is so sophisticated, surely this should be in development after so many so-called mass shootings. The AR-15 will be the first weapon to have anti-civilian technology. An environmental tracker installed in the weapon will notify the local authorities of its location. An LED light will flicker when the weapon enters the proximity zone of civilians. These zones include schools, of course, banks, grocery stores, anywhere that's heavily populated. A security tower will track the location of the weapon once it enters the proximity zone of civilians, and entering that civilian zone. Once this occurs, the weapon is temporarily deactivated, as the triggering mechanism is locked until it leaves the civilian zone.
Welcome to Safe America Corps. Warning, your firearm has been detected in a civilian zone. Auto-lock mechanism activated. Your current location is 321 Rosedale Street. The current time at this location is 12 p.m. Auto-lock will deactivate upon exiting the civilian zone. If you feel this is an error, contact your local police department. If this was not an error, await further instructions from Safe America Corps. Hello, I am Sydney. How may I assist you today?
Now that's why I call gun control. Since gun nuts claim their semi-automatic rifles are merely for sport or hunting, shouldn't have a problem with this, right? But what if there is an emergency in that civilian zone, which may require the gun owner's assistance? Oh, a handgun should be able to handle it. After all, it functions the same as a semi-automatic rifle, right? The funny thing about it, it's actually a great idea and design. With all this technology being plastered in your face, the so-called metaverse, creating artificial copies of yourself in cyberspace, literal robots telling humanity about its dreaded future, surely that same evolution of technology could pioneer a new age of gun safety, right? Heck, look at the different types of guns being manufactured, they damn near appear futuristic anyway, right? It's a shame that a reporter has shown more innovation for gun safety than the people blabbering back and forth every time there's a so-called mass shooting. In conclusion, Stubby's attempt to suggest that the AR-15 is just a scary-looking, oversized pistol is flat-out corrupt. He knows very damn well what the difference is, as he has extensive knowledge, or even expertise, on firearms. Now in this mudslinging battle between Democrats and Republicans, Stubby would essentially be an accessory to the so-called mass shootings, along with other Republican gun nuts. How in the world did I come to this conclusion? Well, if Stubby claims the AR-15 has the same function as the common handgun, and not accept or present any compassionate focus of the danger of that AR-15, based on the caliber it uses against its targets, which many have been innocent children, how can he avoid the image of being cruel? Let me reiterate, although I think you got it. An AR-15 is more precise, greater velocity, has greater stopping power, and the caliber of this weapon pierces through flesh without any effect to its shape or weight. All of these qualities, or dangers in this regard, is being disregarded by Stubby. Since we all know why Democrats have called for the ban in their bill, Stubby also knows why. Instead of meeting Democrats in the middle, with a comprehensive provisional plan laid out to be negotiated, he would rather keep pushing the narrative that Democrats are trying to disarm the American people. The Nancy Pelosi's of the world, or AOCs, don't know a lick about guns. So their rhetoric of ban assault rifles should be essentially ignored. The bulk of the Democratic Party, though, understands the dangers of the AR-15, and simply want Republicans to acknowledge and accept a plan. That plan will help save lives of hundreds, even thousands, of American citizens, right? Especially the primary so-called victims of these so-called mass shootings, children. This is the chaos sector. Oh wait, before I leave you. If you are wondering why we use the phrase, so-called, in our analysis, well, remember, we are in the Matrix. This is the chaos sector.